Okay, you are now live.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you're joining from. And thank you for joining us today. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our speakers of the day, Lino Quagliariello. Correct me if I'm wrong. He is a product manager and a blockchain expert at MDxBlocks. Lino has been working with enterprise blockchain for the last 4 years, and he's passionate about the space. Please believe me when I say really passionate. You can ask him about everything and he'll have something to say. And he also will be joined by Swapnil. Swapnil is a senior DevOps and a Hyperledger Fabric expert. Today's topic of presentation is script-free production-grade hybrid Hyperledger Fabric deployment and management. And it gives me I'm more excited for this presentation today because Lino is going to dive right into the tools and show us how things work. Typically our presentations are about speaker walking us through information, via slides and decks, but I think today we'll see them getting their hands dirty and real-time deployment. With that, I will open up the floor, but before I do that, a quick housekeeping items. If you have any questions, please feel free to put that in the chat. I will be monitoring the questions and we will table that towards the end as Lino and Swapnil have finished their walkthrough. And with that, I will open up to Lino. The floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Jyoti. I appreciate the introduction. You got my last name right. That was very, very good. And so today we're going to present a way to deploy Hyperledger Fabric without using any scripts. And as Jyoti mentioned, I'm joined over here by my colleague. And he's going to do the demos. So he's going to get his hands dirty. So the idea of synthesis, it started when we thought about a network with, you can have networks with 100 or 1,000 of companies, and every company has their preferred infrastructure. So you can as well have a network like the one you're seeing right now on the screen, with a beautiful mix of infrastructure. So when you have a networks, and the greater the networks, more complex, how do you keep every single peer that the organization is responsible for their peers, and every single peer up and running all the time with scripts? So it becomes overwhelming, and that's why we created synthesis that is only uses a graphic user interface, you're going to see on the demo, and connects everybody seamlessly. So it's just a basic invite, and the companies join the network, and everything is done using a graphic user interface. So just some features. It's important to mention that synthesis is a free tool. So you can download as many as you want, and create your network or create a production grade network. It's important to mention that synthesis is a client, so you download the software and install on your infrastructure. So if you have Azure, you download, install in your infrastructure. If you have on-premises, you're going to do the same. So on any cloud, you're going to download it and install on your own infrastructure. And this is important because users, they have control over their infrastructure, they have a control over their data, they have control over their security. So synthesis allows for that, and that's how synthesis works. There is no limit on channels, chain codes, transactions. Everything is unlimited. Synthesis is based on Kubernetes, and the idea of synthesis is to make the experience as easy as possible. So synthesis includes a auto deploy for Kubernetes clusters. We have a specific tools for AWS, Azure, and GCP, and on premises. And if needed on any other cloud, you can use the on-premises to create the Kubernetes cluster. Or if you have your Kubernetes cluster, Synthesis can connect directly to it. We just thought that it would be nice to offer the auto deploy for people that have no experience with Kubernetes or little experience with Kubernetes. Also, Synthesis provides an API to handle any operations with chain codes. We're going to go through that. Private data collection and HSM, and also as an add-on support. And the model of deployments that Synthesis uses is the admin. So the admin is deployed first, and the admin invites all the other organizations. So the admin is responsible for the governance management of the network. And with that brief introduction, I'll hand over to Swapnil.
Cool. Thanks, Lino. Hi, everyone. So let's just jump right into the demo and see how things actually work. So to do that, you would just visit synthesis.io. Before going ahead, I'd just like to highlight the 4 steps that we would be basically having. First, we would install a Synthesis downloader. This is a dashboard client with which you interact with your network. So you would install it. Then you would deploy an Hyperledger network. This would consist of the consortium network, which would have orderers nodes. Then you would invite other organizations. These invitations would be for the peer organization, which would be joining your consortium. And then that's it. You would manage everything from graphical user interface, all further operations like creating chaincode and channels and all those things. So you can just navigate to download. And then there are a few sign-up steps that Lino can share you later on. But that's how, basically you would just get started with. When you basically are logged into our platform, you would land up on this page. Over here, there's an option to download a client. If you click it, it would actually download a zip file which contains an installer. This installer is compatible with Linux, CentOS, as well as Ubuntu. You then create a virtual machine in your environment. So whatever environment that you have, meaning any cloud provider or on-premises. For this demo, I have created an demo EC2 server on AWS consortium demo. On this, this is a small EC2 server. I just moved this zip file over there and ran that installer. It's just a simple CLI. Everything is available in documentation. After the installation is done, you can simply open the IP address and you would be interacting with an user interface, which looks like this. Now over here, you can log in with the email address, the same user and password that you basically used for signing up. Now basically you have this client, you need to authenticate with so that this virtual machine or this dashboard is authenticated with your app only. So just go back to Synthesis Launchpad and register your client. You paste your client ID and that should be the registration process. Just go here and refresh. Yeah. Now you are basically welcomed with this launch wizard, wherein you would be defining few attributes for your blockchain network. Let's go through it. So first of all, we need to define a name for your blockchain network. You can define whatever name that you want. Then you're asked to give a username and passwords. Then we need to define a certificate authority. This certificate authority is for our orderer network or the admin network. So I'm just giving a name and some user, again, and whatever username that you want. We also support HSM, but I will skip it for now. Then for root certificate authority, right now we are supporting auto-generated root CA certificates. Then for communication between network, you can have an automatically generated TL certificates. Now you can define orderer names, then credentials for an orderer, and how many nodes of orderers that you would want to have in your network. So these are actually Hyperledger Fabric orderer nodes that would be spawned after we basically proceed ahead. Now here you have two options. Synthesis at the backend can create a Kubernetes cluster for you, and on which it would basically configure all the Hyperledger related components. Alternative is that if you have your own Kubernetes cluster, you can just point it to it, authenticate with it, and you can use your own Kubernetes cluster as well. Otherwise, Synthesis can help you to get started with it. So, meaning Synthesis would create or deploy a Kubernetes cluster for you. Now you can choose any of the supported infrastructures that you want to have. We currently support AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, as well as on-premises. So I'm just choosing Google Cloud for now, and in demo I can show you more. This is a cluster name. This would be an actual cluster name for the Kubernetes cluster, not the network. So I mean, anything that you want to mention, you can do it here. Then to get started, you can add the nodes under this Kubernetes cluster, how many nodes and what type of configurations that you need. So in GCP, you can define whatever number of nodes that you want. I'm just choosing the default 2 virtual CPUs, 7.5 gigs of memory, and count as 2. I mean, bare minimum 2 should be fine. The region that you want to have, the zone that you want to have. Then now you need to authenticate this Synthesis platform with a cloud provider. In each and every cloud provider, we do support various ways. In Google's GCP, we have defined some documentation wherein you create an service account, you generate keys for that service account, and those keys for service accounts are being used over here. So just navigate to your credentials and you can upload the JSON that was there for your service account. At the back end, it just initializing with your cloud provider with given access. If anything, any authentication issues, it can just show you over here. And that should be it. We are ready to roll. This provisioning would take some time. We definitely should have some quotas available. The details are provided in documentation. Once you click finish, it would just go ahead and create a Kubernetes cluster with defined details. It would create an Hyperledger network with defined ordered nodes, etc. And it would just take some time. So I'll just be skipping this step and show you then the actually created network that I created just before this call. Once that provisioning is done, you would basically be shown this dashboard. I mean, this is the same virtual machine that you installed your dashboard on. And once installation is done, you would be welcomed with this dashboard. In my setup, this is the consortium admin. Again, this is installed in AWS at the backend. I chose AWS as a cloud provider and created an Kubernetes cluster. It is a managed EKS Kubernetes cluster. Over here, I had chosen one orderers nodes. That's why orderers are one. Channels, peers, and chain codes. These are the things that I added later on. So in your case, you would just see one order only. Now, till this point, we have an organization. We just have orderers. Now you can go ahead and add more peer organization, right? I mean, you can invite another organization, say that, hey, you can connect with me, invite them to this consortium, and then you can create channels between them and move ahead with that. So to invite organization, it's pretty simple. You just go here, click on invite organization, give an organization name, whatever email address that you want to invite to. I'm just typing some sample email address and number of peers that this peer organization might have. So we can choose 1, 2, and whatever you want to. I'm just choosing 1 for now. And the permissions that you want to set, if this is admin organization or not. You can add multiple rows and send invitations for all of them. I'm just sending it. So upon receiving invitation, you would be getting an email, and this email would contain all the details about how to sign up. And it would be similar wizard that we already had. Meaning you would also have a new account. I mean, this organization would have its own account. He would get its own downloadable, or however, whatever we chose from over here. So he would have his own downloadable and his own client. Now in this case, organization 1, I created an EC2 server in AWS again. I installed a zip file, whatever installer that I have. I registered with the same steps. And then I would again be welcomed with similar wizard, wherein I need to provide same things as whatever mentioned. Instead of orders, hence, I mean, this time I would just be adding a peer name, number of peer nodes, and again choosing whatever cloud provider that this organization wants. In this case, this organization is deployed in AWS. Similar thing, I did it for organization 2 as well. And over here, organization 2 is on Google Cloud. So on Google Cloud, same thing, I created a virtual machine called consortium out to install my downloadable and went through the wizard. That's how basically whenever these organizations are ready, you would see status as active. So in my demo, my example, I had 2 organizations. One organization is in AWS, second is in Google Cloud. Status is active because they are already created. Okay. You can also see what all the peers and anchor nodes are there. Now you have organizations over here. Now you can create channels between and again, you can have any number of organizations. You can create channels and install chain codes on those channels. To create channels, you can just navigate over here. Again, I have created some sample channel, but here's how you can create new channels. You can just add channel, give a channel name, whatever that you want to have. Let's say I have an FAPCA channel. I already created FAPCA, so I'm just adding it. You can just give a description. You can define attributes for this channel. The orderers that we already created would appear over here, orderer organization. These policies you might already have seen in the config.txt file of the profile that we create. Then you can choose any number of organization that should be invited to join this channel. I'm selecting both of the organization. Sorry, this channel is, this should be a channel name. I mistakenly added a chain code name. So it should be some channel name. Anything is fine. Okay. Cool. Now, from administrator's perspective, you have initiated that this channel should be, I'm inviting these organizations to join this channel. The same thing, in organization's dashboard, you would be basically have all the controls over here, whether you want to approve or join this channel or not. Both of the organization would receive this notification that, hey, admin created in channel 2, do you want to basically approve and go ahead and join this channel or not? So you can just click on approve. At the back end, it would approve and move ahead. Similarly for organization 2 as well, it should appear over there. Yeah. Same thing, you approve over here as well. Approvals are still in progress. It might take few seconds. Okay, till then I can continue. So basically, when these are the channels have approved from both of the organizations, you can, there's an option over here to create a channel, actually create and join channel. So these organizations would join after the channel is created. Once everything is done, these kind of statuses will be active. Channel status is active, and organizations, if they have joined or not. If they didn't join, you have an option to retry. If there is failure, you would get an email address saying whatever the issue is, and along with some logs. Now you have channels. You can just click over here and see what channel, what all things that this channel consists of. Right now it consists of some chain codes, and just click on channel and see what all settings that you selected for creating the channel. See, this is also now ready to join. So I can just click on join over here, and so that these organizations individually can join to channel 2. And just skip it for now. Now, in this example, I have channel created, 2 peer organization already joined. I can now go ahead and deploy a chain code on this channel. You just move to this chain code section. Again, a sample chain code is already deployed, but here is how you can deploy it, a new one. So you can give a chain code name, select a channel. You can select any number of, you can select a channel from list of channels. Then there would be a zip file which contains your chain code actually with its dependencies mentioned like package.json and all those things. So in my case, I'm just using this PapCar example. Now F10 supports these chain code languages, JavaScript and Go. You can select whatever language that chain code was written in, and the version of the language that was used to write the chain code. This is used to resolve dependencies in the backend while deploying chain code. This was written in version 8. I just had the description. Now you have an option to execute init method. If your chain code have some initialization method, you can mention it over there optionally. My chain code, this PapCar chain code, has an initialization method called initledger. So I'm just mentioning over here. Again, though our channel has both of the organizations on it, you can optionally choose if this chain code should be deployed on single organization or both or all of them. There's also an option for private data collection. So you can define some private data collections over here and have an access level, access control over it. Yeah, you just add in channel. You will have an option to deploy it. It will again send some notifications to both of the selected organizations that you need to basically approve it from your side as well. It's actually kind of a voting system. So it's waiting for approval. It's not installed. Yeah, right. So on your organizations, this is again org1 in AWS. You also have an option to approve the chain code installation from your side. Similarly, an organization too, which is in Google Cloud, needs to approve the chain code from his side as well. Might take some time over here. Okay. Once the approval is ready, again, it would take few seconds to reflect back to this administration dashboard. Now, approval is ready. Then this just goes ahead and installs the install the chain code. Once the installation of the chain code is ready, you can invoke the methods that are defined in chain code, and it would actually interact with Hyperledger and underneath and do the blockchain related transactions. You have two options. You can go ahead and invoke and query from this UI that is provided. We also support APIs so that using those APIs, your applications can interact with the Hyperledger network that we just deployed. I'll just go through the step. One way of doing it is just executing it over here. You have invoke and query options. In my Fabcar chain code, I think you are also familiar with it. We have some methods defined like query all cars. So I'm just using that. If optionally, if your method has some arguments, you can provide it over here. Now this is actually executing the chain code and getting all the or querying all the transactions that were there, all the data that's there. Another method of interacting with this chain code is via APIs. Now, API documentation is also again mentioned in our help section. We also have created an Postman collection so that you can go ahead and test it. So using Postman, basically we would be interacting with our network and do the chain code operations. To do that, first of all, we need to authenticate with our platform, right? So we have this init API cloud login method, the API call over here. The URL is the same as the admin network that we have. So first of all, we just authenticate with it with our platform and get a barrier token, which would be used for further transactions. So I'm just mentioning my username, password, and just requesting. It's in post call requesting a token for it, authentication token. Using this, I can just basically copy this barrier token and have my further API calls done. Example again, query transaction. If I need to query the transactions in my chain code which is installed, so I just go to the dashboard, chain code, it's here, see the details, just grab this chain code ID and use this in my APIs. So see API query transactions and my chain code ID. I use the barrier token that was which I received in step 1, and simply I can initiate or call this API and get the details. This was query all. You can also invoke some transaction and execute the necessary methods that those were defined in your chain code. In my case, it is in create car. So let me just create car with some options. Car number is car 22. It's Honda Accord in blue color, and username is Alice. So yeah, chain code is invoked. Now you can also query the transaction, same thing, chain code ID, the method name which you defined in your chain code. In my chain code, it was query car and it accepts one argument. Over here, I can give car ID. and it can retrieve the transaction that the data that we had put on our blockchain, Hyperledger blockchain network. Okay, with this, I would just hand over to Lino. Thank you.
Thank you, Swapnil. So as you saw with Swapnil, you saw the platform, but to register, it's very simple. You just go to synthesis.io, click on download. And when you click download now, it's going to ask you to register. And you're going to see after registration, you're going to see this screen. Just follow the steps that Swapnil described to be able to install Synthesis and deploy Hyperledger Fabric. We have the knowledge base called helpsynthesis.io here. So you're going to see many articles. I suggest you start with this article over here, which is Synthesis 101. That's going to just go step by step how to proceed and point to the other articles that may be helpful. And as a roadmap, because I imagine everybody wants to know what is coming for Synthesis, we are finishing external and intermediate CA. You saw in the deployment that that's not ready. It should be ready in the next month. And then we have this list, one of them, and I saw there is one question about orders. Today, we deploy only the order on the admin network, but soon we're going to have as many orders distributed as needed, and many other features, as you can see over here. Before we open for questions, I just want to thank everybody for your time. This is going to be a community-driven project. What I mean is, whatever the community requests, we're going to be implementing. And if anybody works in an educational institution, we like to work closely with educational institutions in a way that students can have the network ready for them to start playing with Hyperledger Fabric. The idea over here for Synthesis is to remove the complexity of the infrastructure level, infrastructure layer, so everybody can focus on the business outcome, on architecture of the blockchain network, the architecture of the smart contracts. Please feel free to open a ticket on knowledge base or email me directly. This is my email, lino@synthesis.io. Please feel free to send me an email, connect to me on LinkedIn. And for everybody that is listening to us that has a passion for Hyperledger Fabric and Hyperledger environment ecosystem and want to join us and help us, please send me an email too, okay? And with that, we are going to open for questions.
Thank you, Lino. That was a wonderful presentation. So I have to say, I've been working with Fabric since its 1.2 version, and I wish this was around then, around 2017, 2018. It took away a lot of challenges of coding in and using the CLI. And I don't know how, if you thought of security, but this process and this tool takes away so many security complexities when it comes to building the infrastructure layer. I can name like 5 on top of my mind, even to begin with, like that developer insider threat gets taken away. And so there are a lot of benefits, security benefits also for using tools such as this. So let me jump into the chat questions I have. I have a few, but I'll table them towards the end. Our guests first. So first question is from Suresh. Again, everyone, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question, or since you put it in the chat, I'm also happy to do whichever way works best for you. I'm happy to do both. So first question in the chat was from Suresh. He's asking, do we have an MFA option enabled for admin account?
Swapnil?
No, right now we don't have MFA enabled for our dashboards. Definitely we can work on it.
Yeah, it is just, sorry, Jyoti, this is just to, see where do we evolve from a platform standpoint, right? It looks like an integrator. So a couple of features are like, basics when it comes to integrating or adding networks. One is the management of security. So just posing it to understand, is that something in pipeline, or, is that easy to do it? Just for learning purpose. And then, I hope all the questions are taken sportively here.
Sure. Let me address that. When we develop Synthesis, we develop all the basic features, as you can see. And the idea is everybody can deploy and work and test, but each deployment is going to have different needs. And of course, we are open to customize that at any given time. So we have our roadmap, but if anybody wants has any specific need, just contact me. You can contact me through the website, through my email, and we can discuss that. Okay. But again, these type of questions, this type of interactions is important to us for us to manage our roadmap. So if not customizing to a specific need, definitely if you have this request many times, it's going to take priority in our roadmap. And one thing about Synthesis 2, this is pure Hyperledger Fabric. That is nothing that we created that is proprietary. Everything is pure Hyperledger Fabric.
Thank you, Lino.
Good to know. Suresh, you have a few other questions. Would you like to continue and ask them?
Jyoti, I have background noise. Would you mind going it through?
Not at all, not at all. Okay, let me wrap up Suresh's question. So when it comes to adding organizations of a permission blockchain, how does the organization manage their resources? Or is there a primary admin who will manage the resources?
So I can take this question. Everything is agreed when we have a private network with the admin. So when you talk about, I'll have 3, 4, 5 peers. So everybody's going to agree they need the resources for that. Of course, you can have more than that, but that's agreed beforehand, the number of resources. And also, you can always use autoscaling if you want to, using Kubernetes, so you can use that feature too. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, I think you did, Lino, because when we add organizations, right? So the purpose of this Hyperledger is like, decentralized permission is like, everyone can do anything, or the visibility is there from a transaction standpoint. But onboarding an org, that is an initial step, right? Probably like attaching a domain to domain. And post that, there may be a lot of changes within the organization layer. So that's where I was thinking, if it needs to be handled separately, or probably, we may have plans to do it later.
That's a good question. Let me add something to my answer. So at any given time, let's say that you invite an organization and the architecture asks for 2 peers, and you authorize the organization to have 2 peers, but then things change. So the organization now needs 2 more peers. is just a simple request. The organization sends a request to the admin, and as soon as the admin approves, the organization automatically can spins more two more peer nodes. Make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's very dynamic. It is not the first configuration that can change. That is gonna change, right? In the real world. So we cover that. It's just a request. The same way, there are many requests. We didn't cover everything on this presentation. But for example, let's say organization 1 wants the organization 2 to join. It may suggest to the administrator to invite that company. So there are a lot of features that we didn't cover on this presentation. But that is an interaction. What I mean, there is an interaction amongst the organizations and the admin within the system, not outside, within the system. But what you're gonna see in the real life is both, right? You can make a request, but it may email or call the admin and to move forward the process.
Yeah, thanks, Lino.
And a follow-up question is, how are roles and permissions managed? Is it supposed to be done on the Hyperledger code?
Swapnil?
Okay, so roles and permissions, whatever users that we created, we had few options over there to select if they are admin or not. Anything beyond that, yes, it should be Hyperledger code.
For example, Swapnil, it is like, PII or like, some information which, organization A does not want to show to the overall network. So, so that will be done on the code, is it?
Would that be the private data collection feature?
Yeah, pretty much it sounds like it. That's why I asked, like, what is covered in the private data collection feature.
Yeah. Lino, if you can just brief about private data collections.
Yeah, the private data collection, we implemented the exactly what the Hyperledger feature. So if you have a channel where you want only few of the organizations to see something, you just create that when you deploy the chain code, you just create that as a private data collection. And this data is going to be only for the organizations you select. Did I answer your question?
Follow-up, yes, it does, one follow-up to that, answer, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say if there is an auditor or a regulator who needs access for a specific period of time as part of, their validation or auditing purpose. So is there anywhere we can, provide and controlled access to what they need to see, because at the end of the day, they want to look at every transaction and log, right? And specify duration so that it kind of goes away at one point of time.
Yeah, I suggest that to be done using the API and querying the ledger and having the access on the application layer. I don't know if that would work for you. I think to give access to the ledger with certificate and everything would be rather complex. But we are open to discuss that. I don't know if Swapnil has any other ideas.
Yeah, not right now. We need to discuss details about it.
But Suresh, we don't have a feature for auditing other than the access to the chain, to the ledger. But if you have anything, any suggestions that, we are open to discuss with you and implement.
Sure, Lino. It's about the roles, right? It's like, how do we categorize the roles and how do we...
Yeah, because you can handle that through the infrastructure layer. You can handle that through the application layer. So we can discuss doing that on Hyperledger level. Definitely, yes.
Sure, Lino. Thanks.
All right, moving on to next question from Team Grinch. Are the networks of synthesis interoperable with Fabric organizations that were set up without synthesis?
That's a very good question, and this is on the roadmap right now. And considering that synthesis is free, every organization must use synthesis right now in a network. But for the sake of flexibility and considering that is a distributed network, this is the next step. So this first step, what we have a free tool that can connect to any cloud and on premises. And on top of that, we deploy the Kubernetes cluster. So this is the first step. Next step is to connect to any other organization that is not using synthesis, but has the respect the same version, all the governance of the network to be able to join.
Wonderful. Next question is from Jugma Bora, who's asking, do you support Node.js for chaincode?
Yes, and that's a question to Swapnil. I saw that we named JavaScript, but it's actually Node.js, Swapnil?
Yes, we do support Node.js, and yeah, that example was Node.js version 8.
Okay, so yes, actually, we may need to correct that. When you select the version, is Node.js or Go? Those are the two we support currently. But of course, we're going to add more. The roadmap has external chaincode as one feature. So we're going to add with time. We're going to add more features like this.
Yeah, I got a quick question. This is Jugma again. Sorry to interrupt, but what happens if an organization goes away? Like it doesn't want to participate in the network anymore for whatever reason, business reason. So how do you take care of that?
Yeah, today you're not taking care of that. That's part of to implement, and that usually when the organization is not participating, the way to move this organization out of the network depends a lot on the consortium, what the consortium decides to do. So we're still trying to figure out a generic way to do that. But that's going to be very technical. You just remove you're not going to take care of admin stuff. It's just the technical part of removing the organization. And let me ask only Swapnil. Swapnil, do we allow to remove organization right now, or we are working on that?
No, we are working on that. Removing network would mean that uninstalling chaincodes or removing that organization from any channels that organization had participated in.
Yeah, we are currently working on that. So right now we don't have the feature. We should have the feature in the next month.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Next question is, so is the first org the only auditor and the controller of a CA, certificate authority?
Okay, I can
Swapnil?
Yeah. So the first organization right now is auditor, but as Lino already mentioned, we would be having a distributed auditor, so other organization can be auditor. And about CA, in real world scenario, every organization, be it peer org or the auditor org, would have its own CA. So in our case as well, auditor organization has its own CA, peer organization would definitely has its own CA.
Okay, so does the synthesis tool support VM failover? That is, one VM from a Fabric network fail, another VM can take over to provide the same service.
Sure. So the VM that I was showing you, wherein we installed the dashboard, it's just for us to interact with basically with the Fabric network that we have. Even if it goes down, it won't cause any issues in the Fabric network, meaning in the peer nodes and orderer nodes that are already running. Those are separately running on a Kubernetes cluster, and in Kubernetes, the failover is already handled. So even if the VM fails over, shuts down, or if you haven't, if you just destroyed or there's some hardware degradation, you can just install the downloadable package in new virtual machine, do the registration step again. It's just adding that registering with your client ID, and everything should be there because most of the things are already in Kubernetes.
Got it. Suresh, in the best interest of time, I'll come back to your remainder questions just to be fair to other members. So the next question is from Bala Velanki. How do you handle chain code events?
Need more details. What kind of chain code events?
Bala, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question? He seems to have left. Okay. Next question is from Rodrigo. Can you tell us about a successful use case?
I can tell about many successful user cases. One I can mention is field distribution. So where in blockchain, again, blockchain doesn't work by itself, right? Blockchain, at the end of the day, you're going to use with IoT, you may use RPA, you're going to use a lot of integration. And in this case, we use IoT devices of flow to measure the amount of fuel that went to a gas station. But everything started at the refinery in Houston and moved all the way to Mexico, to gas stations in Mexico. But blockchain is pretty much only the data repository. There's a lot that is done on routing. There's a lot of done with IoT, but that's a user case. The other user case is Provenance. And we have Provenance all over the place, right? We have Provenance, again, in oil and gas, when you talk about pipes moving, and that there are some very, very specialized bolts for when you have oil exploration, especially any type of oil well, you need specialized bolts, so you need to control that through the process. You need to know exactly how many times it was tested, or if it was reconditioned. So that's another one. You see that with food. We are now working a project. I cannot open many details, but is on agriculture. So it starts from the seed and goes all the way to the seed becoming a cooking, output for cooking, and every step of the way, and including government control, because the government is involved. So you need to be able to track back and show that that specific seed has this genetic composition, and the end result is pure. So that's another example that we have.
Awesome. Next question is, when will the supporting of multiple or distributor order nodes be available?
It should be available in about, I would say, 2 months or 3 max. We've been working on that already. So what we learn about Hyperledger Fabric is nothing is simple. Nothing is very straightforward. So there's always some surprises here and there, especially when you work with Kubernetes. So you're doing a hybrid, mixed infrastructure and using Kubernetes, and it's very tricky. So when I say 2 to 3 months, is because we are used to have some surprises with Hyperledger Fabric, where pretty much we cannot find an answer anywhere. So we need to figure that out. So I would say 2 to 3 months, you're going to have that ready.
I second you on that. It is quite complex. Next question is, does it have a Kubernetes operator? Like, as in, why not use an existing Kubernetes operators for Hyperledger for day 2 operations?
Yes, I can do it. So
yeah.
we are using Helm charts to deploy all these things like order nodes or peer nodes and whatever workflows that we have. We're not using Kubernetes operators. For day 2 operations, basically these Kubernetes clusters are again created in your environment. So in case of AWS, it will be EKS cluster. In case of Google Cloud, it will be GKE. So from day 2 operations perspective, it's your environment and you own the environment. So you can just go ahead and maintain the Kubernetes based whatever day 2 operation that you have, be it scaling or upgrading versions, etc.
And it's important to add that if you have your Kubernetes cluster, let's say you use OpenShift or you deploy your own AKS, it's easy to connect to those. Yeah. You just offer another level of, we deploy Kubernetes for you to just be able to help those organizations that don't have the resources or knowledge to do so.
All right, the next question is about use cases, which you have already answered. Another one is a follow-up on the Kubernetes. If you use Bezu operator.
As I mentioned, we use Helm charts instead of operators.
Got it. Okay. And that marks the end of the questions on the chat. We have about 2 minutes. I had left behind Suresh's questions. Suresh, so it would be a great use case or a demo when you compare the manual effort versus synthesis. Spanning nodes and monitoring consumption appears to be a challenge. Any plans for bringing in a central hybrid infra monitoring GUI?
I don't know if you clearly understood the question, but there are so many tools out there that you can connect to the network. I see Splunk has a beautiful tool to monitor Hyperledger. So we don't want to compete with Splunk on that. I believe the tool that they offer is very, very complete and is specific for Hyperledger Fabric. So we offer only the basic information for the network. And our goal is, as Hyperledger Fabric specialists, is to be able to offer more on the Hyperledger Fabric side instead of offering on the dashboard side that other people, they are doing really well. I don't know if that answered the question.
Lino, I did not mean to ask about synthetic or transaction monitoring elements, which pretty much Splunk has really good dashboards. I'm talking about, as the network deployment and, number of nodes gets added, the question is about the consumption because, because of cloud and, auto scaling and infrastructure as a code practice, we keep spanning instances, right? At one point, it has to go down. It normally happens, as part of your load balancing efforts. But I was just, trying to see, apart from the dashboards within AWS or GCP, is there a way we look at the current active nodes, their consumption in that angle, not transactional or, synthetic angle? Okay,
Swapnil, do you have an answer for that?
No, we don't have that information on synthesis dashboards.
Okay.
All right. We are at the top of the hour, and in the best interest of our presenter speakers' time in respect of that, I don't see any more questions. So, Lino, any last words from you?
We always welcome suggestions and new features, and we are very also flexible and open. If anybody have any issues, we're gonna be more than happy to address that right away. I count on everybody to collaborate for us to improve adoption of Hyperledger Fabric. And again, thank you for our time. I hope we deliver value to you today. And Giotti and Hyperledger Foundation, I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.